Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 11 of the Blender Story from Zero to Andy's Room course. In this episode, we're going to dive a bit deeper into topology during 3D modeling process, and we'll also learn about another super important and useful technique in the modeling board, which is Booleans. As always, don't forget to download the blueprints from the link in the description, and let's jump right into it. In this episode, we're going to model this wall shelf. First, let's start with modeling the shelf itself. In the top view, I'm going to add a cube and adjust the vertices to match the reference. I'm going to also tweak the vertices in the right view to match the thickness based on the reference. Now I'm going to add an edge loop in the middle and delete the left side of the mesh. And since this part will be attached to the wall, the back face won't be visible, so I'm going to delete that face. Next, I'm going to select this edge, switch to the top view, and bevel it, and click about here. I'm going to change the segment to 4 and reduce the shape until it matches the reference, just like this. For the raised edges at the top and bottom, you can either select the face, press I for inset, and push it in a little, then press Alt-E and choose Extrude Face along normals to pull them out a bit. Or we can use bevel modifier for this part. Let me show you how to do that. I'm going to add a bevel modifier, switch the limit method to weight, and using Alt-click, I'm going to select these two edge loops. Now I'm going to press N to bring up the side panel, and here set the mean bevel weight to 1. Then over here, I'm going to set the profile shape to 0, and don't forget to set the segment to 2. Very cool, right? Now I'm going to jump into the front view and adjust the amount to match the reference. So that's another way to do it. Now, we want to add another bevel to all of these edges, but currently we don't have access to the edges made by the first bevel, so we need to apply the bevel modifier. Alright, I'm going to apply it, add another bevel modifier, and change the limit method to weight. As you can see, the weight for these edges remains at 1 because we changed it earlier. Okay, now I'm going to select the edges. Well, the edges that already have a weight of 1, which is here highlighted in blue, don't need to be selected, but I'm going to select them just to be sure. Okay, let me turn off the bevel modifier so you can see more clearly. Okay, this one also needs to be selected, and these are the edges we want to bevel. So I'm going to go here and change the mean bevel weight of these edges to 1 as well. Now I'm going to turn the modifier back on, set the segment to 3, and adjust the amount. Okay, let me zoom in a bit. Alright. I'm going to tweak the amount a bit more, and we're done. Now if I add a subdivision surface modifier, you're going to see that the mesh gets smoother, but if you take a look at the topology, you're going to notice that because of the large n-gun on the top and bottom surfaces of the mesh, the topology gets messy. However, since this topology issue is happening on a flat surface, it doesn't cause any shading problems here. But as I mentioned earlier, because we want to focus more on topology in this episode, let's clean up this mesh a bit so that our minds gradually get used to proper topology. So, first of all, I'm going to delete the subdivision surface. Now let's switch to the top view and press K to activate the knife tool. You're going to notice that the mouse icon has changed, and now I can easily add edges with this tool. Alright, I'm going to move my mouse close to this vertex, and as you can see, it snaps to it. I'm going to click, and if I move my mouse, you're going to see I can now click on another part to add an edge. Now I'm going to press A, and as you can see down here, pressing A activates the angle constraint. And if I move my mouse, you're going to see the angle being constrained in this section. Alright, I'm going to move my mouse here and click. Right now, you're going to see that this edge is highlighted in red, and if I press escape, the edge will be cancelled. But if I press enter, this edge will be applied and turn orange. It's pretty simple, right? Okay, let's do the same thing for this vertex as well. So press K, click on this vertex, then A, and click here, and finally press enter. Alright, now you can see that these two faces have become quads, and now we just need to fix this n-gun face. It's really simple. Press K again, click on this vertex, then move your mouse along this edge, and click around here. After that, press A, click here, and press enter. Again, K, click, A, click, and enter. Okay, once more, K, click, A, and if I click here and press enter, you're going to see that this edge didn't extend and got cut when it reached to this edge. To prevent this from happening, let me undo. After pressing A, just press C to activate cut through. Then click here and press enter. Now you can see that the edge we added extends properly. Okay, this bottom surface is also a large n-gun, but don't worry about it right now since we're focusing on the top part. Later we can fix the bottom part using a mirror modifier. Okay, let's fix this part too. I'm going to press K, click, A, then C, and click and press enter. Now you can see that all these faces have become quads. If this isn't clear to you yet, just don't worry about it. Just do it for now, and over time, as we dive deeper into topology, understanding these things will become easier for you, okay? Just don't worry right now. Alright, I'm selecting this vertex, pressing G twice, and moving it a little closer to improve the flow. Okay, I'm gonna also move these vertices to tidy up this area, and that's it. Okay, now I'm adding an edge loop in the center. I'm selecting these bottom faces and deleting them. I'm adding a few edge loops here and 2 more here. If you want, you can select this edge loop, press S, then X, type 0 and press enter to straighten it like this. Okay, I'm gonna repeat this for the other edge loops. Remember, you can press Shift R to repeat the last command you used for the others. Okay, like this. Okay, now I'm selecting this edge loop and scaling it to 0 on the y-axis. Then I'm going to select this one and press Shift R. Okay, look at the topology. It's super clean and organized. Alright, now I'm going to add a mirror modifier, move it up, and enable the z-axis for it. You can see that the object origin needs to be fixed, so I'm going to select this vertex, press Shift S, cursor to selected. Then in object mode, I'm going to right click, go to set origin, and choose origin to 3D cursor. And that's it. Now if you add a subdivision surface modifier, let me collapse these panels. Okay, set the viewport levels to 2 and enable shader smooth. You can see it's working perfectly and we have an amazing topology. That's great. Okay, let me activate cavity from the viewport shading section, set the type to both, and adjust these properties for a more appealing shading. You're already familiar with these settings from earlier episodes, right? Now let's move on to modeling the part that connects the shelf to the wall. Okay, I'm going to add a cube, move it here in object mode, scale it down, press the period key on the numpad to zoom in. Okay, I'm going to adjust its position again in object mode, step back a bit. Okay, move these vertices up to here, and then move these down. I'm going to switch to the right view, move these vertices back, and bring these vertices to about here. I'm going to add an edge loop in the center. Okay, you can see its position is okay in the right view as well. I'm going to select this face, switch back to the right view, and extrude it to about here. Now I'm going to select these edges and bevel them. I'm going to click here to confirm and adjust the shape from this section a bit. Okay, I'm going to also change the segments to 4. Okay, that's done. I'm going to select these side faces and delete them for now. Then using Alt and click, I'm going to select this edge loop and press F to fill it. Okay, I'm going to do the same for the other side as well. Now we need to create the heart-shaped hole in the middle of this mesh. And this is where the fun part of Boolean modeling comes in. Okay, to use Boolean, we first need to model the heart shape. So let me show you a cool way to model a heart in Blender. I'm going to temporarily hide the blueprints collection and also hide these 2 meshes. Let me also bring the cursor back to the center of the scene. Alright, switching to the front view, I'm going to add a cube and rotate it 45 degrees. I'm going to select these 2 faces, press Alt-E, and this time choose Extrude Individual Faces. Alright, type 1 and press Enter. As you can see, this type of extrude moves the faces individually along their normals. Alright, now let's select these edges and bevel them. Just press C to prevent the vertices from crossing over each other. The segment count is fine at 4. Now press A, then M, and choose Merge by Distance to merge the vertices that are on top of each other, so we don't have any extra vertices left. Okay? you can see how easily we managed to model this heart-shaped object. Now let's get to the exciting part. I'm going to unhide the blueprints and also these meshes. Okay. I'm going to rotate this object 90 degrees on the z-axis, switching to the right view, scale it down, and adjust its position. Okay, let me get closer, and this looks about right. Let me scale it down a bit more. I'm going to move it here, and this position looks good. Now I'm going to select this edge loop, duplicate it, and right-click to place it back in its original position. By pressing 3 on the top row of the keyboard, I'm going to switch to face select mode, press L, and then delete all the faces. This way we can easily work with the vertices and shape it the way we want and then extrude it, right? Okay. Now I'm going to select these vertices and move them down a bit. I'm going to select this middle vertex, and don't forget how to activate proportional editing by pressing O. Okay. I'm going to press G, use the mouse scroll to adjust the size of the influence circle, press Z to constrain it to the Z-axis, and move it down a bit. Notice how I'm adjusting the size of the circle with the scroll wheel so that it affects the surrounding vertices as well, and bringing them down slightly to better match the reference. Okay, now I'm going to select these two vertices, move them down, and adjust their position with a scale. Alright, I'm going to select this edge and this one, right-click, and subdivide them so that a vertex is added in the middle of each. Okay, now I'm going to adjust the position of this vertex. I'm going to fine-tune the position of these two vertices a bit more with a scale. Alright, that's done. Now I'm going to turn off proportional editing by pressing O. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to move this shape to the side, pressing A to select all the vertices, and then press E to extrude it, and make sure it passes through the other side of this object. Now, to make sure the Boolean works correctly, the cap of this object must be closed. So I'm going to select this edge loop and press F, then select this edge loop and press F again to fill it. Okay, next I'm going to select the object that we want to modify, which is this one, and from the generate section, I'm going to add a Boolean modifier. Now, we just need to select the object that will affect it, which is this heart shape. Alright, from here, just change the solver from exact to fast, and if you hide this object, you're going to see that the heart-shaped hole has appeared here. Isn't that cool? Alright, now let me delete the Boolean modifier here and unhide this, and let me show you an even better way to do it. For this method, you first need to install an extension called BoolTool. Just go to Edit, then Preferences, and here click Get Extensions, type BoolTool, and install this extension. Alright, first just select the object that will affect, and then the object that will be affected. Notice that the selection order is the opposite of the previous method. Now press Ctrl and the minus key on the numpad, not the minus key on the top row of the keyboard, okay? Now you're going to see that the Boolean has happened easily, and you just need to change the solver to fast here. So if you click on this object, you're going to see that the Boolean modifier has actually been added to this object, and at the same time, you're going to notice a bounding box has appeared, which is how the heart object is being displayed now. You're going to also see that the heart object has become a child of the main mesh in the outliner and hasn't been hidden. Its display mode has just changed to bounding box. This helps because if we want, we can change its scale here, and you can see these changes live as well. Super cool, right? If you want, you can go to the object data properties, and in the viewport display section here, under display as, change it back to solid, which is the default, or switch its display mode to any of these options. Okay, I'm going to set it back to bounds for now. And of course, you don't need to memorize this right now. I'm just mentioning to make things easier to understand. Okay, Boolean generally has 3 modes. In this example, you can see that by pressing Ctrl and the minus key, the difference mode is activated, which simply subtracts that object from the main object. The other mode is intersect. The shortcut is Ctrl*, which outputs only the areas where the objects overlap. The third mode is union, which uses Ctrl and the plus key as its shortcut, and it simply deletes the components of the areas where the objects overlap. Alright, let's get back to our model. Now if we add a bevel modifier, you're going to see that it doesn't work correctly. And the main reason, as usual, is the topology. These endguns prevent the bevel from working properly. Just remember that the one weak point of the Boolean method is this messy topology, which is why many people prefer not to use it at all. But knowing topology is essential, and there will always be moments when it surprises during modeling. However, when you're working with flat surfaces, luckily you don't need to focus too much on topology or try to make every face a quad. So our goal here is to have a topology that allows us to use bevel without any issues. Okay, let's do it. Alright, I'm going to delete the bevel modifier. And first, I'm going to apply the Boolean modifier. I'm going to select these faces and delete them. I'm going to add an edge loop in the middle of this section and another one inside here. Then I'm going to delete the faces on this side so we can focus only on one side for now. Alright? Now, we need to find a way to model at least the topology around these main edges more neatly. Let's do it step by step so it becomes easier to understand. Since we already applied the Boolean, I'm going to delete this object. Now, for example, if I select this edge loop and press E and then S, you're going to see that the surrounding edges aren't being added evenly. It's the same for this edge loop as well. You can see it's not giving us the correct result. That's why we can use the Solidify modifier here. So I'm going to add a Solidify modifier, and here I'm going to activate the even thickness option. Now, as you can see, it's almost giving us the result we were looking for, but you can see that in these areas, the components have intersected. And this issue actually comes from the normals of the faces. Okay, you've heard me mention the word normal several times in this course, and you might be wondering, what's the deal with normals that you keep repeating it? Well, normals are actually a very important topic in 3D modeling. And to explain it simply, it tells the software which side of a face should be considered the front and which side should be the back. The software uses this information to perform many operations correctly. To see the normals of faces, simply go to the viewport overlay and activate face orientation here. As you can see, this option pretty much explains what it does. You're going to see that the display of objects changes immediately and only two colors, blue and red, are shown. The blue faces are the front sides and the red faces are the back sides. As you can see here, these faces are red, meaning the normals of these faces are incorrect. If I temporarily turn off the Solidify modifier, you're going to see more clearly which faces have the wrong normals. So, these blue faces are the front sides and these red ones are considered back sides. And this is why Solidify tried to apply thickness in the opposite direction for these faces. Changing the normals of faces is very common in modeling, and it often happens during the process, which can cause issues. Fortunately, fixing this is easy. Just select all the faces by pressing A, and then press Shift-N. You're going to see that the direction of the faces is now corrected. And you can also see the operation name here, Recalculate Normals. Okay, so we fixed this issue. Now I'm going to turn off face orientation from here to get rid of these colors. Alright, now if I turn the Solidify modifier back on, you're going to see that the previous issue is gone and the faces have been thickened correctly. That's because Solidify now understands the direction of the faces. So, as you can see, these edges have been saved from the messy topology and now bevel can work correctly on them. Here, if you activate the Only Rim option, you're going to see that it also deletes the inner faces, which is great and makes our job a bit easier. If I turn on face orientation again, you can clearly see what this option had done. Okay, now I'm going to turn off face orientation again, and I'm going to apply the Solidify modifier so we can access the faces that were created. Alright, I'm going to select these faces, and these ones, and delete them. Now as you can see, we easily managed to inset these edges correctly using Solidify. Awesome! Now we need to fill in the space between these edges. And here's where the great debate among experts comes in. There are actually two main methods to fill this space. One is quicker but gives you messy and unclean topology, while the other takes a bit more time but gives you relatively cleaner topology. But since it's better for you to quickly get familiar with topology and understand it, let's try to work a bit with topology here. Of course, we're not going to focus on it too much. What I'm about to show you isn't necessarily the best method, but I want you to go for it without fear and see that it's not as hard or strange as people make it out to be. To start, I'm going to select this object and go into local view. The first important thing to learn here is the type of edge that exists in corners like this. Let me show you on this example. I'm going to select this cube and press the I key for the inset tool and press I again to activate the individual faces option, then do a little inset. Okay, now I'm going to select this cube, select all the edges, and this time bevel them with Ctrl B, then press P and set the profile to 1. Alright, now if you look at the topology of these two, you're going to notice a big difference in the corners. In this cube's corner, we have a slanted edge, but in the other cube, we have two perpendicular edges. These two edges serve as supportive edges, helping to preserve the cube's shape after applying subdivision. But over here, we only have a slanted edge in the corner, with no additional edges on either side to help maintain the shape after subdivision. For now, I just want you to remember these two scenarios. These two edge types are important for topology. The difference between these two types even affects how we add edge loops. For example, if I press Ctrl R to add an edge loop, you're going to see that if I hover my mouse here, the loop curves around like this. This is called edge flow, and this is how the edge flow looks here. Whereas in this other cube, the edge loop doesn't curve around, but continues perpendicularly in another direction. Interesting, right? Now, since we often use the very handy subdivision surface modifier, let me select both cubes and press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision surface modifier with level 2, and immediately you can see how differently the shape of two cubes has changed. This one, thanks to the supportive edges, has kept its shape, while the other cube, lacking supportive edges and having a different edge flow, has become more rounded and lost its shape. Alright, now let's go back to our model and use what we've learned. So first, let's deal with the corners. Here you can see that this edge is slanted, and since we want this corner to maintain its shape and not deform, we need to adjust the edge flow. Okay, I'm going to switch to the right view, and fortunately, now you know how to fix this part. Okay, we're going to press K for the knife tool, click here, press A, then C, and click again. I won't press enter just yet. Let's click here. No need to press A and C again. Just click here, and then press enter to apply it. Great. Now let's move on to the next corner. Okay, so K, click, then A, C, and click again. I'm going to repeat the same process here and enter. Perfect. All right, there's one more corner down here. Let's go for it. Okay, same process again. Now by holding Shift, I'm going to select all these slanted edges in the corners, just like this, and then press X and dissolve edges. Okay, let's press Alt and middle click to zoom in on this corner. And now you're going to see that this type of topology in the corners is starting to look familiar to us. Alright, now let's move on to filling in this large empty space between these two meshes. Guys, don't overthink it too much. All you need to do here is add as many edge loops as necessary and try to fill in the space like a puzzle, aiming for quads as much as possible. I suggest you watch this part of the video first and don't follow exactly what I'm doing. After watching, be brave and start filling in the space on your own. Okay, let's start. First, I'm going to select this edge with Alt and move it so that it's roughly aligned with this part. Then I'm going to bevel it with Ctrl B and use the mouse wheel to add 3 edge loops in the middle. I'm going to space them out so that each aligns with the edges at the bottom. Now I'm going to select these 2 edges and fill the space with F. Then I'm going to select this edge and press F, F, and F. Great. This part is filled in easily. Now let's move on to this section. Let's add an edge in line with this edge. I'm going to press Ctrl R, move it slightly down, and click. Then I'm going to bevel it to add 2 more edges on either side in line with these 2 edges. Now I'm going to select these 2 and press F. Then I'm going to select this one and press F again. I'm going to add another edge loop here and fill this area. Same with this part. The key here is that you don't need to fill the empty spaces one after another. If you get stuck, leave that part and move on to another section where you feel more comfortable. For example, in this section, it's quite clear how to fill it. So I'm going to fill it like this. I'm going to fill this part the same way. This section is a bit unclear, so I'm going to skip it for now and move up a little. I'm going to add another edge loop here and connect these 2. Okay, I'm going to select these 2 and press F. Now I'm going to add an edge loop here, select these edges and press F. Then I'm going to add another edge loop here and fill in this section. Okay, you're going to notice that the pattern starts to reveal itself slowly. Now we need an edge loop along this edge as well. So I'm going to add an edge loop here and another one here. Then I'm going to select these 2 and press F. I'm going to fill this part too. I'm going to add an edge loop here, fill this section, one more here, and F. For this part, if I press F, you're going to see that a triangle is created here. So I'm going to undo that and add an edge loop here, and now press F. You're going to see that we have a square left, so I'm going to press F to fill it. Alright, let's move to this side. I'm going to add an edge loop here and F. You're going to notice this edge is pointing in this direction. So I'll simply select it and press F, then fill the remaining area. Now let's go to the bottom section. Okay, let me think for a second. Alright, I'm going to select these two and fill them. I'm going to fill in this large empty space as well. Okay, I'm going to add an edge loop here. Select these and press F. Here, you can see that these two edges are very close to each other, and if I delete one of them, it won't significantly change the overall shape. As you can see, this part hasn't changed much, right? Okay, finally, I'm going to add an edge loop here and fill in the remaining two sections. And that's it, guys. You can see that this space completely filled, and all the faces are quads. Sure, the topology isn't the prettiest, but as I mentioned before, since we're working with a flat surface, it won't cause any issues. We're not going to deform this object or do anything special with it, so in cases like this, the sensitivity toward topology is quite low, okay? If you want, you can tidy it up a bit more. For example, I'm going to select this edge loop and dissolve it. You can see that whether it's there or not doesn't make much a difference, so we don't really need it. I'm going to select this edge loop, press G twice, and move it slightly to this side, so that the two sides are more evenly spaced. And yes, alright, that's it, guys. Now let's add a subdivision surface modifier. I'm going to set the viewport levels to 3 and enable shade auto smooth. Okay, as you can see, there are no shading issues on this surface, and it turned out pretty well. Okay, for beveling the edges, I'm going to select this edge loop, this one, then this one, and this one. Okay, now I'm going to bevel them, add one segment in the middle, and click around here. Now you can see that the edges are a bit sharper and more noticeable. Alright, before filling this section, I'm going to add a mirror modifier. Okay, it seems like the object origin is in the correct place, and the mirror is working properly. Now I'm going to select this edge loop, and before extruding it, let me move the mirror modifier to the top. Okay, now I'm going to enable the clipping option and extrude it all the way. Alright, and that's it. You can see how nicely it turned out. Okay, let's bevel the edges of this section. Let me temporarily turn off the subdivision surface modifier so I can easily select this edge loop. Alright, I'm going to turn the subdivision surface modifier back on and bevel this edge a bit. There we go. You can see that the edges are now sharper. And if you look at the topology, you're going to notice that although it's not the prettiest, it has given us the result we wanted. And that's all that matters. Okay, now we need to sharpen these sections. For that, let me turn off the subdivision surface again, select these edges, and also the edges of this part. Okay, now I'm going to turn on the subdivision surface back on. To make this section sharper, right-click, and here we have an option called Edge Crease. Yes, as you can see, the shortcut is Shift-E. I'm going to select Edge Crease, and if I move my mouse now, you're going to see that the selected edges gradually turn red, and this is how the edges become sharper. Very cool, right? Okay, I click, and you're going to see that the edges are now sharper, and the shape is getting closer to our reference. If you want, you can right-click again while the edges are selected, choose Edge Crease, and adjust the intensity, like this. You can see how easily this section was fixed. Alright, I'm going to switch the shading mode here to check if everything looks good. Okay, that looks great. Let's test with this one. Alright, okay, it's fine, but I feel like it would look better if this part were a bit sharper. So I'm going to go back to edit mode. The edges are already selected, so I'm going to right-click. Actually, let's use the shortcut. Okay, what was it again? Yes, Shift-E. Okay, I'm going to move the mouse and make the edges sharper. Alright, there we go. You can see it looks great and there are no shading issues. Okay, let me change the shading mode so you can see it better. Alright, now I'm going to select the object and exit local view to see how the objects look together. And yes, they fit together nicely and complement each other. Okay, let's add a mirror modifier. And since the object origin is already in the center, we can use this object as the axis for the mirror. Alright, so I'm going to select it. And that's it. And this is the modeling of the cool wall shelf in Andy's room. Okay everyone, I hope you enjoyed this part as well, and don't forget to join our Discord server to ask any questions you have. Take care everyone, and goodbye.